Namaskar, good evening. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I am Smriti Rastogi with News Tonight. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. In the Nirbhaya gang rape case, Supreme Court upholds death for 3 convicts who pleaded for life terms. All 4 convicts in the case now have the option of filing curative and mercy petitions before they face execution. Apex Court says it's in favor of live telecast of courtroom proceedings, wants them to start from court number 1 presided by Chief Justice of India, asks Centre to give suggestions to frame guidelines. World's largest mobile facility now in Noida expanded Samsung facility to produce 1.25 crore cell phones, provide new jobs to over 2,000 people. Prime Minister Modi says complementary strengths of India and Korea will create IT civilizations in both nations. No consensus on simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Law Commission consultations see 5 parties, including SP and TRS, supporting the idea. 9, including Trinamool Congress, CPI, Aam Aadmi Party and DMK, oppose it. BJP and Congress seek more time to express their views. And torrential rains lash Mumbai and neighbouring areas. Normal life crippled as heavy water logging on roads and railway tracks cause massive traffic jams and delay suburban trains. Several schools and colleges declare holiday. Our top focus tonight, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and South Korean President Moon Jae-in on Monday jointly inaugurated the Samsung Mobile Factory. That's the world's largest mobile plant in Noida in Uttar Pradesh. After the inauguration, the Prime Minister asserted that it was a big step towards making India a manufacturing hub. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath was also present at the launch venue of Samsung's Noida factory.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday dedicated the world's largest mobile factory to the country. Modi, along with visiting South Korean President Moon Jae-in, inaugurated the Samsung facility in Noida city of Uttar Pradesh. Built with a budget of over 4,000 crore rupees, the factory will provide jobs to over 2,000 people. Addressing the opening ceremony, the Prime Minister said that it will strengthen relations of India and South Korea.
सस्ते मोबाइल फोन, तेज इंटरनेट, सस्ते डेटा के चलते आज फास्ट और ट्रांसपेरेंट सर्विस डिलीवरी सुनिश्चित हुई है.
The Prime Minister also added that the last 4 years has seen the number of mobile manufacturing factories go up to 120 from 2 in 2014. Over 4 lakh people are employed in these factories. Samsung's facilities employ 70,000 people in India.
भारत दुनिया में दूसरे नंबर पर पहुंच गया है. बीते 4 वर्षों में फैक्ट्रियों की संख्या, मोबाइल फोन बनाने वाली फैक्ट्रियों की संख्या 2 से बढ़कर के 120 हो गई है. और खुशी की बात है कि जिसमें से 50 से अधिक तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ यहां नोएडा में है. इससे 4 लाख से अधिक नौजवानों को सीधा रोजगार मिला है.
The factory is being made under the Make in India policy of the Modi government. The South Korean tech giant makes 67 million smartphones in India. The new plant is expected to escalate its output to nearly 120 million phones per year. After inaugurating the factories, both Modi and Jae-in visited the production line of Samsung and toured the factory. AKHILESH Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And earlier in the day, South Korean President Moon Jae-in had offered cooperation in making of smart cities, ships and industrial corridors in India. He said that Korea will also offer India industrial technology in addition to ongoing cooperation in science and technology. He also invited Indian entrepreneurs to invest in South Korea.
as His Excellency Moon Jae-in joins us.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in addressed the India-Korea Business Forum on Monday in Delhi. He said that Korea and India will also cooperate in space, including lunar mission and industrial technology. Commerce Minister SURESH PRABHU was also present on the occasion. Nearly 500 Korean companies are operating in India with business of less than $20 billion.
We already created Korea Plus in our Invest India, which is part of my ministry. But now I think Korea Plus is not enough. Knowing the type of investment that is coming in, probably we'll have to think about Korea Square. That's a potential. And therefore, I think we really need to work on many of these areas together. And I really look forward to that.
The South Korean president also held talks with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj on strategic issues. Swaraj briefed the Korean president about how India can cooperate with South Korea in establishing peace in the Korean peninsula. The Korean president will have a summit-level meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday.
At a time when Korean peninsula is going through the peace process, President Moon is very hopeful about India-Korea ties. While it will fulfill Korea's need of investment abroad, it will also fulfill India's need of making India and generating large-scale employment. Meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi will write a new chapter in the history of India-Korea relationship. AKHILESH, SUMAN for Rajya television with camera person Dusmonta in Delhi.
And for more on this, we'll go across to Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General, Research and Information System for Developing Countries. Sir, thank you so much for coming to our studio. My first question, sir, huge investment Samsung is making in India, and of course now this facility will produce around 1.25 crore cell phones and provide new employment opportunities to the people. How significant is this step for the Make in India initiative?
This is extremely important day today in history of India-Korea relations. It also marks a major departure. Those of us who are following this bilateral relationship would recall how in 1951 till 59, India provided training in industrial engineering to not only technical people from South Korea to India, but also sent our own people to provide that technical input to South Korea. So that relationship now has transformed into a completely different ballgame, which is in terms of creating not only jobs that industrial technology from South Korea would bring in, but it would also bring in a huge opportunity for exports. As this factory unfolds of the Samsung, scope for around 30% of their total production are to be exported. It would bring in foreign exchange. It would bring in scope for jobs that are extremely important. The direct jobs and the indirect jobs. And that way, this investment has several important facets that are there. And if you juxtapose this over the opportunities that the industrial linkages between India and South Korea would bring in, Samsung would be a great catalytic force. It is also important for us to realize that the 2,000 jobs that we are talking about as directly at the factory, we should not forget that the indirect jobs that would be coming in from common service centers that would be providing the scope, the exports that it would lead to. And of course, as early estimates from the research, they show how important would be the spillover effect, the fact that some of the Samsung work would also be outsourced. And if you see India's own engagement with BHIM, which Prime Minister very rightly mentioned, in last, since its launch in last 7 months itself, BHIM's transaction is somewhere close to 41,000 crores. And the fact that Samsung has agreed to enter in a partnership with BHIM, that would also have its own impact in terms of advancing economic interests of both. So I think this is an extremely important investment that President and the Prime Minister have launched. It is not confined to mobile production alone. It has huge economic benefits for both the countries.
Sir, talking about the economic relations which you just mentioned between India and Korea, what are the other sectors which the two countries are eyeing?
See, India and South Korea enjoy a bilateral relationship at 2 or 3 different levels. Our Commerce Ministry delegation was in Tokyo a week and a half back when we had the RCEP negotiations, and South Korea is sitting with us on that table where we are discussing several issues related to our collective approach on RCEP. With South Korea, we also have special understanding under the free trade agreement, where there are several issues. And if you see, India's exports to South Korea is around $5 billion, while our imports from South Korea is of almost $15 billion. But if you see in terms of investments, South Korea's cumulative investment in India is close to $5 billion, and our investment in South Korea is close to $3 billion. So if you see the trade deficit that we are witnessing, this rising investment from South Korea would help us bridge not the trade deficit that we have with South Korea, but our exports to other countries would be extremely important. And what is emerging now? In this scenario, what is emerging is this growing interdependence of the two economies. And it's important that with the industrial technology and the R&D advancement that South Korea has accomplished over the years, India would have similar national innovation system parameters coming in here, which would trigger a huge drive for Make in India. And that technological prowess that we would be moving forward with would give a huge opportunity for us to advance our economic interest along with that of South Korea. It is also important that we see these investments as an opportunity in terms of bridging the trade deficit.
Mr. Chaturvedi, what is Korea's new southern policy and how significant is India in this policy?
India is an extremely important play in terms of how South Korea is viewing engagement with many other actors. South Korea is world's most important example, a country that was aid dependent till 1964, by 1994 became net aid provider to other countries. This transformation of South Korea in one generation is one of the most interesting examples in how countries leverage industrial policy for their economic benefit. It's also a very good example of how countries leverage foreign aid for advancing their economic interests. You would see many countries which have eventually ended up with foreign aid as a dependent country. This urge to become self-reliant, this urge to get technology and move forward and do away with foreign aid and provide assistance to other, South Korea is a beautiful example of that. It was a predominant agriculture economy which has become an industrial conglomerate. In their southern policy, we find that India fits in very well in terms of how they are planning to reach out not only to the countries in Asia, but also in other parts of the world. The fact that South Korea has shown a lot of interest in Asia-Africa growth corridor is also important, that it may not remain confined to India-Japan partnership. It may as well have South Korea on board in terms of expanding those frontiers of trade and investment for South Korea.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaturvedi, for joining us and giving us an insight into that development of South Korean President Moon Jae-in to India. And of course, the big takeaway of today, the world's largest mobile factory is now in Noida. It has expanded Samsung facility to produce 1.25 crore cell phones, and it will of course provide an enhanced job opportunities to the people. Moving on to some other developments, a parliamentary delegation from the Senate of the Republic of Rwanda visited the Haveli Dharampura in Chandni Chowk. During their visit, the delegation praised the architectural beauty of the Haveli and also appreciated and said that culture and heritage must be restored like this. Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs Vijay Goyal said such a visit will strengthen relations between India and Rwanda. Rajya Sabha Secretary General Desh Deepak Verma accompanied the engagement.
This place with this original culture, which is very important because in every country, every population, if you have a very strong culture, you keep your identity. And I think it is very good to keep safe this such a place for that purpose.
the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji is also going to Rwanda. First time Indian Prime Minister will visit the Rwanda, and we hope our economic, bilateral, political relations will be benefited from this trip of them.
The Human Resource Development Ministry on Monday granted institutions of eminence status to 3 public and 3 private institutes. The status will enable these institutes to get full autonomy and special incentives to project them as world-class universities. The HRD Ministry will also grant 1,000 crore rupees funds to the 3 public institutions in the next 5 years. The private institutes, however, will not be eligible for government funding. The government granted IOE status to IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay and IISc Bengaluru in the public sector, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, BITS Pilani and Geo Institute by Reliance Foundation in the private sector. UGC had received 103 applications including JNU and Delhi University for IOE status. And the Law Commission wrapped up its 2-day consultations with the political parties on feasibility of holding simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha and state assemblies on Sunday. Samajwadi Party, Telangana Rashtriya Samiti, Shiromani Akali Dal and JDU supported the notion of one nation, one election. Samajwadi Party said that the process of simultaneous elections should be started from 2019. AIADMK said it is not against one nation, one election, but certain practical and serious issues need to be settled first. On the other hand, Trinamool Congress, CPI, AIUDF, DMK, Aam Aadmi Party and Goa Forward Party opposed the concept. DMK firmly opposed the idea of simultaneous polls to the Lok Sabha and state legislature, terming it a complete misadventure that will decimate the federal structure. However, TDP has adopted a more cautious approach and have questioned the availability of EVMs. The BJP, which has voiced its support to the proposal, has sought more time from the Commission to present its views on the issue. The Congress said it will consult other opposition parties before putting forth its views before the Commission.
समाजवादी पार्टी लोकसभा और देश की समस्त विधानसभाओं के चुनाव एक साथ कराने के पक्ष में है। ये प्रक्रिया 2019 के लोकसभा चुनाव के साथ ही प्रारंभ की जानी चाहिए। 2019 के साथ ही, ये नहीं कि आगे ले जाएं।
लॉ कमीशन का जो सुझाव आया है उस पर हमारी पार्टी ने प्रस्ताव के जरिए रिएक्ट किया है। हम एक साथ चुनाव कराए जाने के पक्ष में, लेकिन जो हमारा सैद्धांतिक रूप से विचार और मकसद है वो ये है कि इसका व्यवहारिक क्रियान्वयन को लेकर के हमारी कुछ ऑब्जेक्टिव है। ये इतना आसान नहीं है जितना इसका विरोध हम इसलिए नहीं कर सकते कि ये सस्ते चुनाव कराने की, गुड गवर्नेंस की दिशा में, ब्लैक मनी पर थोड़ा बहुत हल्ला बोलने की दिशा में ये बहुत सकारात्मक कदम।
We had submitted our opinion today where we have mentioned that we are in favor of simultaneous poll for both the Lok Sabha and the state legislature assemblies, so that the elected governments at the state level and at the central could function appropriately for the elected period of 5 years without wasting time in elections across the country.
It's not practically possible. To be very precise, the federal structure has to be upheld, it has to be protected, and democracy has to be upheld. Whether it is expenditure or democracy. If that question arises, democracy is the answer. If that comes, the reply, then the simultaneous elections would not be practically possible and feasible.
On to some more developments which we have tracked through the day. Supreme Court today upheld death penalty in the December 16, 2012 Nirbhaya gang rape and murder case. A 3-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Deepak Mishra rejected the review pleas filed by Mukesh, Pawan Gupta and Vinay Sharma, saying no grounds have been made out by them for review of the verdict. The apex court said the death row convicts failed to point out error apparent on the face of record in the judgment. The fourth death row convict, Akshay Kumar Singh, did not file a review petition against the apex court's 2017 judgment, which had upheld the capital punishment awarded to them by the Delhi High Court in the gang rape and murder of the 23-year-old paramedic student in Delhi. The convicts are now left with the option of filing a curative plea in the Supreme Court and a mercy plea before the President.
हमारी न्याय व्यवस्था में जो कानूनी प्रक्रिया है इसमें बहुत लंबा समय लग जाता है, तो मैं कानून व्यवस्था से अपने पूरे सिस्टम से हमारा रिक्वेस्ट है कि अपनी कानून प्रक्रिया को चुस्त करें और देश के सारी बच्चियों को इंसाफ दें.
The centre has informed the Supreme Court that live streaming of court proceedings across the country can be undertaken. A bench comprising Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and Justices A.M. Khanwilkar and D.Y. Chandrachud asked the parties to give suggestions to the Attorney General for formulating holistic guidelines for live streaming of court proceedings. The apex court had on 3rd of May sought the response of the centre to pleas seeking live streaming, video recording or transcribing of judicial proceedings in courts. Attorney General had earlier told the court that live streaming of court proceedings was an accepted practice in various countries. In a bid to bring in transparency, the top court had last year allowed the installation of CCTV recording with audio in the trial courts and tribunals in every state. The petition filed by the law student had also sought a direction for setting up of live streaming rooms within the apex court premises and granting access to legal interns. And the Supreme Court has refused to adjourn Tuesday's proposed hearing on a batch of petitions challenging its verdict that had recriminalized consensual sex between two adults. The bench refused to defer the hearing after the centre sought more time to file its response on PILs on gay sex. The newly reconstituted 5-judge Constitution bench is scheduled to commence hearing of 4 crucial matters, including the issue of sexual relationship between persons of same sex from tomorrow. The Supreme Court had in 2013 restored sexual relationship between persons of same sex as a criminal offence. And the Supreme Court today dismissed a plea challenging the Agra authorities' order debarring non-residents of the city from offering Friday prayers at a mosque in the Taj Mahal complex. The bench said that Taj Mahal was one of the 7 wonders of the world and people can offer their prayers at other mosques also. The petition has challenged the January 24, 2018 order passed by the ADM City Agra, which said that those who are not residents of Agra would not be allowed to enter the mosque situated at the Taj Mahal for offering customary prayers on Fridays on grounds of security. Petitioner Syed Ibrahim Hussain Zaidi, president of Taj Mahal Masjid Management Committee Agra, told the bench ADM's order was illegal and arbitrary. Now the news from the national capital, where Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Monday wrote to Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal saying how he can be selective in accepting the Supreme Court's judgment on part tussle between Delhi government and the centre. In the letter, Kejriwal urged Baijal to implement the apex court's order in letter and spirit and asserted that Ministry of Home Affairs does not have powers to interpret the order. He also urged the LG to approach the Supreme Court immediately for clarification in case of any confusion, while saying, but kindly don't violate the order of the apex court. The Chief Minister today approved the Mukhyamantri Tirth Yatra Yojana, a scheme to enable 1,100 senior citizens from each assembly constituency in Delhi to undertake free pilgrimage, overruling all objections raised by the Lieutenant Governor. And the weather news now. Heavy rain slashed Mumbai and its adjoining areas on Monday, flooding streets, rail tracks and crippling life in the city. In Palghar, people were forced to stay indoors due to massive waterlogging in the area. The heavy downpour caused traffic jams as many roads and streets in Mumbai were flooded and people were seen wading through knee-deep water. Rain, low visibility and potholes compounded the problem further. All schools and colleges were closed for the day. The Mumbai University said examinations will be rescheduled for students who could not appear for it on Monday. The issue of heavy rains and its impact also figured in the Maharashtra legislature's proceedings. The state government has ordered an inquiry into the flooding of the state legislature complex in Nagpur after heavy rains last week. And now the news from the Thailand, where the rescuers on Monday freed 4 more members of the boys' soccer team stranded in a flooded cave for 2 weeks. An aide to the Thai Navy SEAL commander said 8 of the 12 boys have now been brought out of the treacherous cave system by divers, including 4 who were brought out on Sunday when the rescue operation began. The boys and their 25-year-old coach have been trapped for over 2 weeks after heavy rains flooded the kilometers-long cave network made up of caverns connected by tight passages. On to some more international developments. UK's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has resigned amid growing political crisis over UK Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit strategy. Johnson became the second senior minister to resign after country's Brexit Minister David Davis and Brexit Secretary Stephen Baker. The UK is due to leave the 28-member European Union on March 29, 2019. But the two sides have yet to agree how trade will work between them afterwards. In a statement, Norton thanked Johnson for his work and said a replacement would be announced shortly, the report said. And now all the international news in Global Buzz. At least 100 people died after record rainfall caused flooding and landslides in western Japan. Scores more are reported missing. Rescue operations are underway to rescue those trapped in floods. Power supplies have been hit. Since Thursday, parts of western Japan received 3 times the usual rainfall for the whole of July. 2 million people have been ordered to evacuate as rivers burst their banks. The heavy rains began with a typhoon last week that was followed by days of record-breaking torrential rain. "24 people were killed and hundreds injured when a train packed with weekend passengers derailed in northwest Turkey due to ground erosion following heavy rains. The train, with over 360 people on board, was travelling from Ardahan region on the Greek and Bulgarian borders to Istanbul's Halkali station on Sunday when 6 carriages derailed. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said there would be a comprehensive investigation into the tragic incident. China on Monday successfully launched 2 remote sensing satellites for ally Pakistan, which will also help the two countries monitor progress as they build the strategic $50 billion China-Pakistan economic corridor. The satellite PRSS-1 and PAK-TES-A1 were launched from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China using a Long Mark 2C rocket. The PRSS-1 is China's first optical remote sensing satellite sold to Pakistan. And that's all we have for you in this edition of News Tonight. For more news and updates, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.